So South Central is starting like school-wide tutoring during office hours time. So Honors Math 2 tutoring will be on, I remember the days, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Mondays, Miss Curry is doing it. It's just so like if you wanted to get help from another teacher. I mean, it's honestly the same thing as office hours. But Monday, Miss Curry is doing it. Wednesdays, Miss Callahan's doing it. And then I'm doing it on Thursdays. I don't care who you go to for help if you need help, as long as you go to somebody. Because we all teach it the same way and use the same stuff. So that's fine with me. I will post each Monday the tutoring schedule because it is going to be by topic. So I know what we're learning today and tomorrow. The tutoring for that, you can go next Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We're all doing it next week, okay? If you don't want to go get tutoring from anybody else, you can still pop into my office hours. That's fine. It's just another resource that you'll have to use. All right, for this warm-up, my people at home, make sure you're asking me questions on this if you said you needed help, okay? For this warm-up, you are trying to solve the quadratic function. What does it mean to solve a quadratic? Find the x-intercepts. I even told you. So we're finding the x-intercepts. So your very first step for any of these, if you're trying to find the x-intercept, what should the y be? 0. If they give you f of x or they give you a y, your first step would be to set it equal to 0. Put 0 in for the y. Now, I did have several of you putting this in standard form. Listen to me very carefully. If you put this vertex form equation back into standard form, you can do that, but you've just done a whole lot of extra work. And if you put it back in standard form, this one's going to have a b term, so then you can't do the square root method, and you'll have to try to factor, okay? So that's not what I wanted you to do for this one. If it's in vertex form, what is the fastest solving method? Square root method, yeah. So what they said, what they told me in class is cover up the squared part. So I'm going to cover this up. Y'all don't look at my nails because I pulled them off and they're atrocious. And what do I need to move first? The 1. How do you move a positive 1?
-1.
Oh, subtract it. There's my BD. All right, 0 minus 1 is -1 equals -9, x plus 6 squared. From here, how do we get the part in the parentheses with the squared by itself? What do we need to move? Divide -9. Good job, y'all. People at home, do y'all agree? Divide -9? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, okay, good. Most of y'all did really good with this. Some of you looked like you were struggling just a little bit, which is okay. Just make sure you ask your questions that you had today. Do y'all agree -1 divided by -9 is just a 9th? Okay, last night on the homework, there was one with a fraction, and a lot of you went straight from this step to the 2 answers, so I know you used a calculator. Listen to me. If you're using a calculator, that defeats the purpose of doing all of this, because there's an even faster way to find the x-intercepts in the calculator. It's called graph it and look at them. All right? We do this. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being dead serious. We do this when we do not have a calculator, okay? So I don't want you using a calculator. How from here would I find out what x is? What would my next step be? Is that what you were going to say? You can just speak up, then. It's okay. Square root both sides. I appreciate you raising your hand, but there's not that many of y'all, so y'all can just talk. You'll still get the participation points too. Square root both sides, and when you take the square root, that gets rid of the squared, right? So do y'all agree? I'm going to hold off, actually. That this is going to be equal to x plus 6. Okay. If you came to office hours yesterday, we talked about how you do the square root of a fraction. And I did put it on the board in class for my people in person. Yep. So look, anytime you take a square root, how many answers should I get? 2, plus or minus. You can have a positive or negative number when you take a square root. Now, what's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 9? So y'all, the square root of 1 over 9, that's just going to be 1/3. So I'm going to pause there and make sure everybody's good and see if there's any questions so far. Y'all feel okay? All right, from here, I'm going to show y'all a separate way to separate these two possible answers so y'all don't keep adding the 6 to the third because you can't do that yet. So when you guys get here, this is my recommendation. If you were in office hours, I showed you this yesterday as well. I highly recommend once you get here, you separate it into the two equations. So here's what I mean by that. The first one should say positive 1/3 equals x plus 6. What should the second option say?
Negative 1/3.
Good. Negative 1/3 equals x plus 6. And then solve them both so you don't mess up on your solving. That's my recommendation. Because a lot of you did really well, and then you got here and y'all just went ahead and subtracted the 6 from 1/3 and y'all put plus or minus 5 2/3. That's not right. So I showed y'all in class, you can't just add those yet. The 6 will go out front. So if you don't feel like you need to separate it, I'm going to let you make that call. Y'all are honors kids. You would subtract the 6 over here, and it would be negative 6 plus or minus 1/3. If you go ahead and separate it, though, watch what happens. We're going to subtract the 6. And 1/3 minus 6, I'm really hoping y'all would know that would be negative 5 2/3. You can type in a mixed number to Delta Math. What if we don't want to leave it as a mixed number? How do you turn that back to an improper fraction? This is elementary school. Good. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So this is the same thing as negative 17/3. So that's the first option. And remember, you would write it as an ordered pair if it asks for x-intercepts. I know that was a lot, so I'm going to pause. Does anybody have questions? Yes. Positive or negative? 1/3. Are you asking how I got 1/3? Oh, no. This is from another thing that I did in office hours yesterday. Just ignore it. There you go. Follow the pink and black. Sorry. I bet you were confused, like, where the heck did that come from? All right, then you would also solve the other x-intercepts. So minus 6, minus 6. If you have negative 1/3 and you put a negative 6 with it, they've got the same sign, so you add them. That would just mean negative 6 1/3, which would be what as an improper fraction? Negative 19/3. Good. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So this is negative 19/3. You can type it in either way. Now, you should not be putting in a decimal for these. Can anybody tell me why? What's 1/3 as a decimal? 0.3333333333, and it keeps going, right? You can't round to that because 0.33 is not the same as 0.3 repeating. We know that from Unit 1. So you got to leave it as a fraction. I don't want decimals. There is one on the test similar to this where it ends up being a fraction. You take the square root and you can simplify it, okay? Any questions before I start talking about homework questions? It's kind of a decent amount of notes, kind of. It just depends if y'all are picking up what I'm throwing down. I know y'all probably didn't like that explanation. So what we're doing today is brand new. So it is okay if it seems a little challenging at first. You may just need more practice. You may need me to word it a different way, and that's fine. What I need y'all to do is tell me, because I'm not a mind reader. I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. This is probably the 4th most important thing I teach you in this class. I'd say 4th. It's not most important because you'll learn it again in Math 3. They'll review it with you. But completing the square is a very big math topic. So let's review. What is the fastest way to solve a quadratic? Nope. Factoring. That's what we've been doing. Y'all should be good with factoring by now. Now, if you can't factor it, if the b is missing, or if it's in vertex form, then what is fastest? Square root method. What I'm going to show you today, completing the square, we're going to use this when it's in standard form. Did everybody hear me say that? standard form, so we're going to write that down in a minute. And you would really ideally only use this if you cannot factor. Because if you could factor it and you waste your time completing the square, it was just that, a waste of time, okay? So I want to start off with completing the square by asking you guys how we would factor this polynomial. It says review, I'm sorry. How would you factor x squared plus 6x plus 9? Can y'all look at that and tell me what the two factors would be? We should be able to. Good. X plus 3 and x plus 3 is what they're saying in class. People at home, do y'all agree?
Yeah.
Factors of x squared are x and x. Factors of 9 are 3 and 3. And if you put 3 and 3 together and add them, they do make 6. What about this one? How would you factor this one? Yes, that boy sounded excited. X plus 5, x plus 5. Are you picking up what I'm throwing down? I'm going to use your slang. You picking up what I'm throwing down? Is this a coinky-dink? No, it's not. These are special kinds of quadratics. Yes, perfect what? Perfect square trinomials. I did teach you this in Unit 2A. I didn't make you know what they were, but I said if you understand these now, you're going to be really good in 2 units. Here we are. These are called perfect square trinomials. So when I tell you that we are completing the square, what we are really doing is trying to write the quadratic as a perfect square trinomial. That's what that square up there means. So all the quadratics we're going to be given today, we're going to try to make them a perfect square trinomial so we can factor them like this. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples before we get to the actual completing the square part, because I need you to be able to deal with perfect square trinomials before you can even complete the square. This is the hardest part of what we're doing today, is you guys being able to recognize these, okay? So it's not bad. You already know how to factor, and then towards the end, we're going to put it with the square root method. Put them together. It ain't bad. It ain't bad. Stay with me. All right, I want you to tell me if this is a perfect square trinomial, yes or no. Okay. Anybody online, yay or nay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I agree. Now listen, because I think some of you might not see the pattern as quickly, and that's okay. It's not because x squared and 49 are perfect squares. That's not the only reason. The perfect squares of 49 make 14. It's a trinomial. So as long as the perfect squares, if you put them together, make the middle number, then it will be a perfect square trinomial. Does that make sense? I need something. Yes, no. Be like,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right. How would you factor this? What would we write?
X plus x minus 7 times x minus 7.
Good. Is that my Carter? Who is that?
Carter.
Good job. All right. X minus 7 times x minus 7. Because it's a negative 14. Pay attention to that sign in the middle, okay? Now, what's another way you could write that? Yes. Ding, ding, ding. This is the whole purpose of what we're doing today. If you can write it like that, what can you use to get x by itself? a square root. So this is really all we're doing today, okay? Some of y'all are like, okay, this ain't too bad. Let's do one more of these, and then I'm going to do something else, and then we'll do a couple completing the square examples. X squared plus 18x plus 36. Is this a perfect square trinomial? No, why not? Very good, it's not. The answer for this one's no, why not?
Because 6 plus 6 doesn't equal 18.
Square root of 36 is 6. If you add those two sixes, are you going to get 18? No, not a perfect square trinomial. Are we okay? So we kind of see what we're going to be doing, right? Okay, let's jump into another example because this is the other thing you're going to have to know how to do with these. So what I want you to do now is find the C value that would make the quadratic a perfect square trinomial. It is kind of new, so if you have questions, y'all just unmute and ask them, and I'll pause the recording. We'll do a couple together, and then I'm going to give you a couple to try. Why did I just write example again? Because I'm a dingbat. Here we go. 1. Being blonde is hard. All right, let's do x squared minus 12x now I'm making you work backwards. Oh, okay, those two boys like numbers. It's okay if you can't look at it right away and see it. That is okay. Listen, it's okay. This is my job, so I need y'all to really pay attention. My job is to train you to be able to look at this and tell me the back number should be 36. So let's talk to our two boys that said 36. How did y'all get 36 so quickly? Yeah, good. Okay, so they said, well, we knew the middle number is 12. They didn't say it this nicely, though, but I'm going to help them out. So what I'm doing right now is I'm revoicing what y'all said. I'm saying what you said, but I'm adding some explanations with it. So they said we knew the middle number was 12, and we knew what number plus itself makes 12. We knew it was 6's. So remember that back number should be a perfect square. So what's 6 squared? 36. Let's try another one. This is the first half of your homework right here. That doesn't mean leave because you're going to get a 48 if you only know how to do this part. Somebody always leaves. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page. What if you have x squared plus 20x plus blank? And don't blurt it out right away. Let everybody write it down. I'll tell you when you can tell me the answer. So I'm timing y'all. Nobody blurted out. So 10 plus 10 makes 20. 10 squared is 100. That would be the back. So the next step would just be from here to be able to factor it. So how would you factor x squared minus 12x plus 36? Good. X minus 6 and x minus 6, which is just good. X minus 6 squared. Good job, Jordan. Same thing with the next one. How would you factor number 2? This is what we're getting into. Good job. X plus 10, or x plus 10 squared. Good job. Do we feel like we can do the perfect square trinomial part? Right, so you got to set it equal to something, and then you'll have to square root both sides. That's what we're about to get into. I got to make sure you can do this first, though, because this is the part where y'all struggle. Y'all don't struggle with the square roots, believe it or not. y'all be messing up right here. Does everybody feel good with perfect square trinomials and being able to find the back number that would make it a perfect square trinomial and then factor it? Do we feel okay with that? People at home, listen, he said, you can just take the B value for all of these and divide it by 2, and that's the number that'll be the factor. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then you'll have to square it because it is a perfect square. I'm so proud of you. You just made my day. This is why I teach. This is fantastic. Are we okay with perfect square trinomials? All right, let's move on. Good job, Jaden. Nobody at home had a question? I ain't got many of y'all getting extra credit today. I'm going to abbreviate because I ran out of room. That means completing the square. Y'all like my cute square I drew? If we just write the steps and then we'll go into examples. Because if I try to explain the steps as I'm writing them, y'all are going to be like, what? Y'all need to see it. So let's write the steps. I'll give y'all time to write, and then we'll go into examples, okay? Does anybody have questions for me? That one that Jordan just asked was really good. Any other ones? Sean, you got these down, babe? Make sure you're with me. We do not want to be lost on this today because this is what we're doing tomorrow and Monday too. Huh? You will have a test on all the solving stuff on March 9th. It's a Tuesday. I don't have it on my calendar yet. The next one. This is a longer unit. Yep, this is a longer unit. People at home, are y'all done copying? Or we were earlier? We may just do a couple of these, depends on how y'all feel with them. The first half of your homework is what we did on the front though. So example 3, I want you to solve this quadratic by completing the square. So I am telling you to use completing the square for this one. In a perfect world, would you complete the square for this? No, why not? You can complete the square. Hang on. You can always complete the square. Completing the square works all the time. You can make it one. That's what we're going to do. That's in our steps to make it a perfect square. So I know 12 is not a perfect square. In our steps, it says we're going to make it one. It's not what I'm asking y'all. In a perfect world, should you solve this by completing the square? You should be able to look at this and say, oh, the x-intercepts are 6 and 2. How did I just do that so fast? Starts with an F. I factored it. Listen to me carefully. On your test, if you complete the square when you could have factored, you wasted time. Always check factoring first. It's the fastest, most efficient method. Now, I'm not going to factor this because we're trying to learn how to complete the square, okay? So I want everybody to stay with me. We're going to complete the square. What should our answers end up being, though? 6 and 2, because this would be x minus 6 times x minus 2, right? I'm just factoring, boo. You looking puzzled. Let me write this to the side for you. Doesn't that factor to x minus 6 and x minus 2? So then you would set each one equal to 0, and the x's would be 6 and 2. That's what we did on Tuesday and last unit. Okay. We're not factoring. Don't y'all write 6 and 2 and then 2 me out. You need to learn how to complete the square for when you cannot factor. So I hope we're all paying attention. What's your very first step? Look at step 1. I've got the steps up here still. Set it equal to 0. 0 equals x squared minus 8x plus 12. Is that anything new? No. We've been setting it equal to 0 to find the x-intercepts. Still on step 1. What does it say after you set it equal to 0? Move the constant, which is the c, to the other side. What is the c value here? 12. You're going to move it to the other side. How do you move a positive 12?
Subtract it.
Good. Subtract it. So everybody watch. We're going to subtract the 12. Subtract the 12. So do y'all agree this is negative 12 equals x squared minus 8x?
Yes.
Okay. I got some compuzzle books. Keep going with me. Is there a question about what I've done so far? I know it's different. You gotta have an open mind. We okay? All right, we're on step 2. If a is bigger than 1, you're gonna take out the a. Do we have to worry about that here? No, the a is 1, so you can skip step 2. You don't need it. Step 3, make the squared side into a perfect square trinomial. This is what we did on the front. What number do I need to put here to make this a perfect square trinomial?
16.
Yes. How'd y'all get 16? Explain it to us.
Divide negative 8 by 2 and you get 4 and then 16 and then 4 times 4 is 16.
Very good. That's what they said in class too. Good job, y'all. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so pay attention. That means 2 4s were put together to make this 8 in the middle, right? 4 times 4, or 4 squared, is 16. This is what we did on the front. Same thing Jaden told us. So I'm going to write this right here to help some of y'all. Take the middle number, divide it by 2, and square it. That'll give you your back number. Some of y'all may want to write that. B divided by 2 and square it. Now here's the catch. And some of y'all are like, dang, I don't want to catch. I wanted to leave it just like that and keep it moving. This is an equation. So if I add something to one side, I have to also add it to the, so you got to go add 16 over here as well. You cannot put something on one side of an equation and not do it to the other. You got to keep the sides equal. So I made this a perfect square trinomial by putting a 16 there. I got to go put 16 on the other side too. Are we good with step 3? We're almost done. That's the hardest step right there. Okay, step 4, factor the perfect square trinomial. Guys, how does x squared minus 8x plus 16 factor? X minus 4, x minus 4, or it'd be even better if you go ahead and write it like this, x minus 4 squared. What am I going to have on the left side? 4.
A 4.
Yeah, good job, y'all. And you know how to solve this once we get here. What do you do to both sides? Square root it. Are you okay? Okay, square root it. What you do to one side, you got to do to the, okay, here we go. Y'all are doing really good with this. What's the square root of 4? Plus or
minus 2.
Yes, that's the kind of noise I do to my dog when she puts a turd in her mouth. She likes to eat poop. It's real frustrating. She's such a good dog, except she eats poop. So annoying. No? That's a great question. Okay, it's x minus 4 right here, y'all, because your 8 that was in the middle was negative. So you need 2 negative 4s to make a negative 8. No, that's not a dumb question. That's a really good question. All right, y'all, how do we solve this once we get here?
Subtract 4 on both sides.
Not subtract 4.
Add 4.
Add 4, but I also don't want you doing that. What was my recommendation?
Oh, split up into 2.
There we go. 2 equals x minus 4, and then negative 2 equals x minus 4, right? Okay. You're okay. Everybody's good. So once I solve these both for x, what would you get? You'd have to add 4 here. 2 plus 4 is 6. And you'd have to add 4 over here. And negative 2 plus 4 is 2, which is what I told you should have gotten, because this one we could have factored. But do you see how if you complete the square, make it a perfect square trinomial, and then use your square root, you'll get the same thing? So I'm going to say it again, and then I'm going to pause and take questions. It would be such a waste of time. I don't want to say foolish, but a waste of time if you do this when you could have factored. On tonight's homework, I do want you doing this even if you can factor, so you can practice the steps. But tomorrow, every single problem I'm going to give you will not factor. So you're going to have to do this, okay? All right, I'm going to pause for questions. You really just need to practice with these. Okay, I feel like it would be beneficial if I do one where the A is not 1. Is that okay with everybody? I'm going to put a number out front. So let's do y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. And this one, those of you that said it was a lot of work, you can't factor this one, so you have to complete the square. This one does not factor at all. So these are the kinds of problems you're going to be getting tomorrow. So we don't even know what the x-intercept should be. So we'll not factor. So look at your steps. What's my first step? Put it equal to 0 and move the C. Good. So everybody watch. We're going to set it equal to 0. And then what are we going to move? Good. How do you move -1? Add it. Good job. Add 1 to the other side. So do y'all agree this is going to be 1 equals 2x squared minus 4x? Evan, you okay? Okay. I would say you're quiet, but you're always quiet. All right. What's step 2? Factor out what? Oh, y'all read it on your paper. What does step 2 say?
Factor out A.
Factor out A. Y'all, the people in class were either not answering or once somebody said B, somebody said something weird. Read your steps. Factor out the A. What is the A value? 2. So everybody look, you have to take out the 2. So I'm going to take it out. What would be left? Nope. They said x squared minus 4x. No, we're not taking out an x. Stop. You're not factoring a GCF. That is not what it says. It says factor out the A. So I'm taking out the 2. What's left? Thank you. Not 4x. That's where y'all will mess up right there. That is x squared minus 2x. Ooh, y'all gave me a heart attack for a second. So do we already see how it can get dicey? Because y'all don't know what A is apparently. And also, y'all talking about oh, the GCF is 2x. I didn't say take out a GCF. Take out the A. Are we okay with that? You can't take out the x because we're about to try to write this as a perfect square trinomial. So leave it. Is everybody okay? Just take out the A. Y'all are making it more complicated. I gave you steps for a reason. Follow them. Make yourself a little checklist. From here, our job is to figure out what number would go in for C right here to make this a perfect square trinomial. I don't want anybody blurting. I want everybody to look at it. What would we put in right here to make this a perfect square trinomial? Remember your shortcut that Jaden taught us. Middle number divided by 2 and square it. So everybody look. What's 2 divided by 2? What's 1 squared? 1. That's what goes here. 1. That's what would make this a perfect square trinomial. If you don't like that way, then take a look. What number plus itself gives you 2? 1 and 1, and they would be negative, I agree. And then if you take those 1s and multiply them, it's still 1. Any questions on how I made this a perfect square trinomial? Because that's where y'all tend to mess up, that and with the A. What, baby? About the 2 on the outside. I think you might be reading my mind for this next part, but go ahead and ask it. What's up? Oh, you ain't reading my mind. All right, listen. You're going to do something with the 2 on the outside in a minute. Don't get ahead of me, but I want y'all to look at this right here. What did I really add to the right-hand side? Nope. Everybody always says a 1. Yes, it's a positive 1. It's not what we added. Dang. What does that 2 on the outside mean? Yeah. Okay, good. Here we go. We're not distributing the 2. But there's a 2 sitting on the outside, which means we have 2 times whatever's in here, right? So how many 1s did I add over here? 2 of them. So what you add to the other side is a 2. That's when it gets tricky. If the A is not 1, if the A is bigger than 1, you're going to have to deal with the number on the outside, and it's going to change what you added. From here, though, everything's the same, so stay with me. We're going to do this all day tomorrow, too, so don't feel too stressed. How do you write, let's go ahead and put 3 equals. If you mess up there, I don't know how to help you. 2 plus 1 is 3. My 4-year-old niece can tell me that. How do you write the right-hand side in parentheses? How do you factor this right here? How would x squared minus 2x plus 1 factor? Very good, Henry. X minus 1 all squared. Does everybody agree? I'm going to come off to the side because my people at home, y'all are just real quiet. That would be x minus 1 times x minus 1 if you factored this right here. So that's just x minus 1 squared. I feel like I lost some of y'all, but I don't know where I lost you because you're just looking at me. Jaden, what do we do now, babe? That boy said, what you call it? What do we call it? Square root method. Good. So take the square roots. Now, before you can do that, because I know somebody's going to do it, y'all cannot do the square root of 2. You are not supposed to do that yet. Cover up the squared part. What do you do with the 2? Divide it. Good job, Henry. Divide the 2. And so now we have 3/2, which is why we could not factor this one, because we got a decimal or a fraction. That's why I wouldn't factor. And now what do you do to both sides? Square root it. Don't say square it. We square rooting and getting rid of that 2. Square rooting. Can you do the square root of 3? Can you do the square root of 2? So what do you think I want you to do with this? Leave it. Plus or minus square root of 3/2 equals x minus 1. And how do you get the x by itself? Plus 1 to the other side. So everybody look, I'm going to add that 1. You need to write it out front so you don't get confused about what was in the square root and what was not. And you can leave it just like this. You don't have to do anything because that was a great question. Everybody look, square root of 3/2, those aren't perfect squares. This is irrational, which is why we couldn't factor. Anytime you cannot factor, it's because you get irrational x-intercepts, which means it's a decimal that does not terminate and it does not repeat. I know this was a lot. Some of y'all didn't even try to ask me questions, so I'm a little worried. It's okay if you come to office hours because you didn't want to ask them in front of everybody else. But you got to ask questions on this because it's new. Even if it's just, I don't get it, can we do another one? Sure. So I'm going to stop recording. The first half of your homework is just